The massive ring world of Centrum Prime floated in space like a giant silver crown. It was the biggest station in the known galaxy. Inside its great halls, leaders from 847 different alien species gathered for an important meeting. The air smelled strange, a mix of different atmospheres that each species needed to breathe. Translator devices hummed softly as they turned thousands of languages into words everyone could understand. High Chancellor Voxthor stood at the center of the grand chamber. He was a Calarian, tall and covered in blue scales that shimmered under the lights. His 4 eyes scanned the room with confidence. For 300 years, the Calarians had been the most powerful race in the Council. They decided which species could explore new worlds and which ones had to follow orders. Today's topic made the chamber buzz with nervous energy. The humans, those strange creatures from a small blue planet called Earth. They had discovered faster-than-light travel only 50 years ago. In that short time, they had spread across space like wildfire. Human colonies now existed on 73 worlds. Their ships appeared in new systems every month. They traded with anyone who would talk to them. They built stations in places other species thought were impossible to reach. The Chancellor's voice boomed through the chamber. The human problem grows worse each cycle. They colonize planets without asking permission. They build military ships that break our weapon treaties. They refuse to accept any of our great empires as their sponsors. This cannot continue. A hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed human ships, strange and angular, so different from the smooth curves of Calarian vessels. Then it showed human colonies, their cities growing fast, their factories working day and night. Finally, it showed human soldiers training, moving in ways that seemed almost violent compared to the careful, formal fighting styles of Council militaries. Ambassador Sarah Chen sat in the human section, watching everything carefully. She was 40 years old with short dark hair that was turning gray. Her face stayed calm, but her hands gripped the armrests of her chair tightly. Around her, other human diplomats whispered to each other nervously. Chancellor Voxthor continued his speech. I propose a solution that protects both the humans and the greater galaxy. We shall declare humanity a protected subject species. They will operate under direct Council authority. Their expansion will be limited to approved zones. Their military will be regulated by our standards. They will finally take their proper place in the galactic order. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species cheered, happy that the troublesome humans would finally be controlled. Others looked worried, remembering their own days of being subject species before they gained independence. The voting lights began to flash as each delegation made their choice. Sarah stood up quickly. Chancellor, I request permission to speak. Voxthor waved a clawed hand dismissively. The time for debate has passed, Ambassador. We vote now. The final count appeared on the massive screens around the chamber. 723 in favor, 124 against. The decision was made. Humanity was now officially a subject species under Council authority. Sarah's face went pale. Her hands shook as she activated her communication device. She needed to contact Earth immediately. Around her, other human diplomats looked confused. They didn't understand why she looked so scared. They thought being a subject species would just mean more paperwork and some annoying rules. But Sarah knew better. She had studied Earth's history. She knew what happened when humans were told they couldn't be free. She knew about the revolutions, the wars, the terrible cost of trying to keep humanity in chains. And she knew something else too. Something the Council had no idea about. Humanity had been playing nice. All this time, humans had followed most of the Council's rules because they chose to, not because they had to. They had held back their full military power. They had hidden their best technology. They had been careful, polite, diplomatic. They did this because Earth's leaders believed in trying to get along with other species. But declaring humans as subjects changed everything. It removed that choice. It removed the reason to hold back. Sarah finally got through to the secure channel. Her supervisor, Admiral Chen, no relation, appeared on the screen. The Admiral was on Earth in the United Nations Space Command headquarters. Ambassador Chen reporting, Sarah said quietly. The Council voted. We are now classified as a protected subject species. The Admiral's expression darkened. Are you certain? 723 to 124. It's official. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed deeply. I'll inform the Security Council. God help us all. They have no idea what they've done. Sir, what happens now? Now we stop pretending. Protocol 7 is now in effect. Sarah felt her stomach drop. Protocol 7. The contingency plan that Earth hoped they would never need to use. The plan that revealed humanity's true capabilities to the galaxy. The plan that would change everything. Back in the council chamber, Chancellor Voxthor smiled with satisfaction. The human problem was solved. They would learn to obey like every other subject species before them. He had no idea that he had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. As the council delegates celebrated their victory, Sarah gathered her things slowly. She looked around at the alien faces, some happy, some curious, some concerned. None of them understood. None of them had studied human history the way she had. They didn't know about World War II, when humans fought so hard that entire cities were destroyed. They didn't know about the Cold War, when humanity built enough nuclear weapons to destroy their own planet 10 times over. They didn't know about the smaller wars, the revolutions, the resistance movements that kept fighting even when victory seemed impossible. Most importantly, they didn't know that every human colony had been preparing for this day since the moment they were founded. They didn't know about the hidden weapons, the secret shipyards, the military technology that humanity had kept carefully hidden from alien eyes. As Sarah walked out of the chamber, she sent one final message to Earth, just 3 words that would echo through human space and set everything in motion. They crossed the line. 3 weeks after the council vote, a Calarian fleet appeared in the sky above New Britannia. The human colony sat on a green planet near the edge of council space. 50 massive warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel, their hulls gleaming silver in the light of the system's yellow sun. Each ship was huge, some over 2 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that could destroy cities from orbit. Fleet Admiral Zexthar commanded the fleet from his flagship, the Endless Victory. He was confident. His mission was simple and would be over quickly. Fly to the human colony, make them understand the new rules, set up a council government office, and leave. The humans would complain maybe, but they would obey. Every subject species did eventually. The Admiral opened a communication channel to the planet. This is Fleet Admiral Zexthar of the Galactic Council. Under the authority granted by the Protection Decree, we are here to ensure compliance with Council law. Prepare to receive our officials. The response came quickly. Governor James McLeod's face appeared on the screen. He was a large man with red hair and a thick beard. His ancestors came from Scotland on Earth. His expression was not friendly. Admiral, I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. New Britannia does not recognize the Council's authority over human worlds. We are an independent colony, founded and settled by free humans. You have no jurisdiction here. Zexthar's scales rippled with annoyance. Humans always talk too much. Governor, your recognition is not required. The Council has declared humanity a subject species. You will comply with our oversight or face consequences. McLeod smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. I invoke Article 7 of the Human Colonial Charter. No external power may claim sovereignty over human worlds without consent of the governed. We do not consent. You should leave now, Admiral. While you still can. The Admiral couldn't believe what he was hearing. A colony of only 3 million people was threatening his fleet of 50 warships. It was ridiculous. He decided to make a show of force. That usually worked with stubborn species. All ships activate weapon systems. Target the planetary defense platforms. Do not fire, just lock on. Show them we are serious. What happened next shocked every Calarian officer on every ship. The sensors started screaming. All across the system, civilian ships were powering up weapons. Mining vessels that should only have basic tools suddenly showed massive energy signatures. Transport ships that carried food and supplies opened hidden weapon ports. Cargo freighters deployed missile batteries that shouldn't exist, but that wasn't the worst part. The space stations orbiting the planet started changing. Panels slid aside to reveal weapons. Structures that looked like communication arrays turned out to be targeting systems. What the Calarians thought were mining facilities were actually fortified weapons platforms. Each one had enough firepower to destroy multiple warships. Within seconds, the Calarian fleet was surrounded by over 200 armed vessels and stations. Every single one had weapons locked on the council ships. Governor McLeod appeared on the screen again. Did you really think we wouldn't prepare for this day, Admiral? We've been expecting the council to try something like this since the moment you let us join your little club. Every human colony is ready. Every civilian ship can fight. We learned a long time ago that freedom isn't free. Zexthar tried to keep his voice steady. You are bluffing. Those cannot be military-grade weapons. You would have violated every treaty we have. Your treaties, not ours. We never agreed to limit our self-defense capabilities. You assumed we did because you never asked the right questions. The Admiral made a decision he would regret. He ordered one of his cruisers to board what looked like a simple transport ship, just to prove the humans were lying about their weapons. The cruiser, called Swift Justice, moved toward the transport vessel. It extended its boarding clamps. The transport ship didn't try to run. Instead, it turned to face the cruiser head-on. Then it opened fire. The weapons that emerged from that transport were nothing like anything in the Council's databases. They didn't use the standard plasma cannons that every spacefaring species employed. Instead, they fired solid metal projectiles at incredible speeds. Railguns, the humans called them. Simple in concept, devastating in practice. The Swift Justice's shields, designed to stop energy weapons, did almost nothing against solid metal moving at thousands of kilometers per second. The projectiles punched through the shields and tore into the ship's hull. Critical systems exploded. Power failed. In less than 30 seconds, a Calarian cruiser that had served for 50 years was crippled, floating dead in space. The transport ship didn't destroy the cruiser completely. It could have, but it stopped firing once the Calarian ship was disabled. A message came through from the transport's captain. We don't want to kill you, Admiral. We just want you to leave. Take your damaged ship and go. Tell the Council what you found here. Tell them that every human colony is the same. Tell them we will defend ourselves. Admiral Zexthar stared at his screens in disbelief. One civilian transport had just crippled a military cruiser, and there were over 200 more armed vessels surrounding his fleet. If this turned into a real battle, he would lose. Badly. Before he could decide what to do, another ship appeared in the system. This one was clearly military. It was a human warship, massive and angular, painted dark gray. The name on its hull read, Terran Defense Fleet Carrier Independence. A woman's face appeared on the Admiral's screen. She wore a dark blue uniform with 4 stars on her collar. Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth Space Command. She looked tired and sad, not angry. Admiral Zexthar, I'm here to prevent this situation from getting worse. I'm requesting an immediate ceasefire. Your damaged cruiser needs help. Let's stop this before anyone dies. The Calarian Admiral felt relief wash over him. A way out of this disaster. Admiral Chen, you are reasonable. Not like these colonists. Help me make them understand that they must obey Council law. Sarah's expression hardened. Admiral, the colonists are right. The Council has no authority here. You need to leave. Take your ships, including the damaged one, and go back to Centrum Prime. Tell the Council exactly what happened. Tell them that declaring us subjects was a mistake. But the vote was legal. The protection decree is valid, legal according to Council law. But humans never agreed to be bound by your laws. We joined your Council as equals, not as subjects. You changed the terms without our consent. After a long moment, Admiral Zexthar agreed to leave. His fleet helped the damaged cruiser, then jumped away to faster-than-light speed. As they left, he looked at his tactical displays one last time. Every human vessel in the system stayed on high alert until the Calarians were gone. The report that Admiral Zexthar sent to the Council caused chaos. He reported that every human colony was a hidden fortress. Every civilian was trained to fight. Every ship could become a warship. The humans had technology the Council didn't understand. Weapons that bypassed their best defenses. When Chancellor Voxthor read the report, he dismissed it. He thought the Admiral was exaggerating, making excuses for his failure. He told the other Council members that Zexthar was incompetent, that the Calarians had failed because they were weak, not because the humans were strong. But some Council members believed the report. The Civics Collective, a species known for careful thinking and peaceful ways, read between the lines. They understood what the report really meant. Humans didn't fight like other species. They didn't follow the same rules. They had prepared for war while talking about peace. The civics representatives called for a full investigation before taking further action against humanity. They argued that the Council needed to understand human culture and history before trying to control them. They warned that forcing humans to obey might cause more problems than it solved. Chancellor Voxthor rejected their concerns. He believed the Council's power was absolute. No single species, especially one as young as humanity, could stand against 847 united civilizations. He would prove that the protection decree meant something, He would show humans their place. He had no idea how wrong he was. After the disaster at New Britannia, Chancellor Voxthor knew he needed a different approach. The Calarians had failed because they used military force. Perhaps diplomacy and peaceful enforcement would work better. He needed to show the galaxy that the Council could handle humans without violence. The Chancellor called upon the Civics Collective. The Civics were perfect for this task. They were known throughout the galaxy as master diplomats and peacekeepers. Their species had never started a war. They had technology that could stop violence without killing anyone. Their neural stunners could disable aggressive beings safely, putting them to sleep without causing harm. At least, that's what everyone believed. The Civics looked like tall, graceful beings with silver skin and large eyes. They moved smoothly and spoke in calm, soothing voices. When they agreed to help enforce the protection decree, many council members felt relieved. If anyone could make humans understand peacefully, it was the Civics. The Civics' peacekeeping force arrived at New Shanghai, another human colony. This one was smaller than New Britannia, with only 1 million inhabitants. The colony was famous for its beautiful gardens and its mix of Chinese and Western Earth cultures. It seemed like a good place to start. The Civics' mission was simple. The Council had ordered all humans to register with the new Protection Authority. This was standard procedure for subject species. The registration would help the Council keep track of human movements and ensure everyone followed the rules. Most colonists on New Shanghai had ignored the order. Commander Sivroth led the peacekeeping team. She was a respected Civics diplomat with 200 years of experience. She had resolved conflicts on dozens of worlds. She believed deeply in peaceful solutions. Violence, in her view, was always the wrong answer. The Civics peacekeepers walked through the streets of New Shanghai's capital city. They wore light blue uniforms and carried only their neural stunners. They smiled at the humans they passed. They spoke politely. They handed out information packets explaining the registration process. Most humans ignored them. Some argued with them, insisting they didn't need to register. A few threw the information packets in the trash right in front of the peacekeepers. But no one got violent. The situation seemed tense but manageable. Then the Civics found a group of colonists who openly refused to cooperate. 20 humans stood in the town square, holding signs that said things like "Free humans don't register" and "We are not your subjects." They weren't threatening anyone. They were just protesting peacefully. Commander Sivroth approached the group's leader, a woman named Liu Wei. She was a schoolteacher, 45 years old, with gray hair tied back in a bun. She looked tired but determined. "Ma'am, I understand your concerns," Sivroth said gently, "but refusing to register is against council law. I'm asking you politely to come with us to complete the registration. There will be no punishment if you cooperate now." Liu Wei shook her head. "We are not breaking any legitimate law. The council has no authority over us. We are free citizens of a free colony. We will not register," Sivroth sighed. She had hoped it wouldn't come to this. "I'm sorry, but I have my orders. If you won't come willingly, we will have to use our stunners. Please understand they are completely safe. You'll just sleep for a few hours. When you wake up, we can talk more reasonably." The Civics peacekeepers raised their neural stunners. The humans didn't run. They stood their ground, linking arms, ready to accept the consequences of their choice. The peacekeepers fired. The neural stunners had been used safely on thousands of species across hundreds of worlds for centuries. They sent a careful pulse of energy that disrupted neural activity temporarily. Beings would fall asleep, wake up with maybe a small headache, and be fine. The technology was considered perfectly humane. But human brains were different. Liu Wei collapsed immediately. So did the others. But something was wrong. Some of them were shaking. Others weren't breathing properly. Commander Sivroth rushed forward, her medical scanner already out. What she saw on the screen made her blood run cold. 3 of the humans were dead. Their brains had reacted badly to the neural stunner, causing massive seizures and immediate death. 12 more were unconscious with severe brain damage. The neural patterns on her scanner showed damage that would be permanent. Only 5 had reacted the way they should have, sleeping peacefully. Sivroth stood frozen in horror. In 200 years of peacekeeping, she had never killed anyone. The neural stunners were safe. They were always safe. But they had just killed 3 humans and permanently injured 12 more. The news spread across New Shanghai within minutes. Within an hour, Every human colony knew what had happened. Within a day, the entire galaxy knew. Earth's response was swift and calculated. Every human colony, every human ship, every human station simultaneously broadcast the same message on all frequencies. It was a document written in hundreds of languages so every species could read it. The Geneva Conventions, the Hague Conventions, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and a new document written just for this moment, the Stellar Accords on the Treatment of Sentient Beings. The broadcast included a simple message. These are the rules we follow. These are the standards we hold ourselves to. We believed you followed similar rules. We were wrong. What followed was a detailed analysis of council practices. Humans had been watching and recording everything since they joined the galactic community. They had documented how subject species were treated. They had studied council peacekeeping methods. They had investigated the so-called humane technologies used to control populations. The report was damning. Neural stunners had never been tested properly on unwilling subjects. Client species were treated as property, not as free beings with rights. Entire civilizations had been pacified through methods that humans had outlawed on Earth over 200 years ago. Forced relocation, cultural suppression, economic exploitation, all presented as necessary for galactic peace and order. The document pointed out that by human standards, many council practices would be considered war crimes. The forced registration of subject species was similar to systems humans had used during their darkest historical periods. The neural stunners, used without informed consent, violated basic medical ethics. The economic systems that kept client species poor while patron species grew rich looked a lot like historical exploitation. The broadcast didn't stop at criticism. It offered solutions. The Stellar Accords proposed new standards for treating all sentient beings, rights that should be universal, protections that should apply to everyone, methods of peacekeeping that actually protected people instead of controlling them. The reaction across the galaxy was explosive. On social networks and communication channels, beings from hundreds of species started asking questions. Client species who had accepted their status as normal began to wonder why they had no rights. Independent species started examining their own relationships with more powerful neighbors. The Civics Collective was devastated. Commander Sivrath resigned immediately. She couldn't live with what had happened. The Civics government issued a formal apology and announced they would no longer participate in council peacekeeping until better protocols could be established. They pulled all their peacekeepers from every assignment. Meanwhile, protests began on client species worlds. Beings who had never questioned the galactic order started demanding independence. The council's carefully maintained system of control began to crack. Chancellor Voxthor called an emergency council session. The chamber was chaotic, with delegates shouting at each other. Some demanded that humanity be punished for spreading lies. Others demanded investigation into the claims humans made. Client species representatives, usually silent during council meetings, spoke up for the first time in decades. One representative, from a species called the Taran, who had been council subjects for 300 years, stood and spoke. His voice shook with emotion. For 3 centuries we have accepted our place. We believed the council knew what was best. We trusted that subject status was for our own protection. But the humans ask a simple question that we never thought to ask. Who gave the council the right to decide our fate? We never consented. Our ancestors never consented. We have simply obeyed because we knew nothing else. Chancellor Voxthor slammed his hand on the podium. This sedition ends now. Humanity will be blockaded. Their worlds will be isolated. They will learn that their rebellious ideas have no place in civilized space. The vote was close, but it passed. The council would blockade human space. No ships in or out. The humans would be cut off from the galaxy until they accepted their proper place. As the delegates left the chamber, few noticed the human ambassador, Sarah Chen, smiling quietly to herself. The council thought isolation would weaken humanity. They had no idea that humans had been preparing for exactly this scenario. The blockade would be the council's next mistake, and this time the consequences would be even more severe. The blockade fleet was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Over 500 ships from dozens of council species surrounded the Sol system, Earth's home system. They positioned themselves at every known faster-than-light entry point. Their orders were simple: nothing in, nothing out. starve the humans of trade and contact until they begged to accept council authority. Admiral Torvus of the Mexian Concordat commanded the blockade. He was experienced and careful. He knew humans were tricky, so he positioned his ships well. Overlapping sensor coverage, patrol routes that left no gaps, weapons always ready. The blockade was perfect. Or so he thought. What Admiral Torvus didn't know was that human faster-than-light technology was fundamentally different from council technology. The entire galaxy used the same FTL method, discovered thousands of years ago. Ships jumped into something called hyperspace, following natural channels that connected star systems. These channels, called hyperlanes, were like rivers in space. Every spacefaring civilization used them because they were fast and efficient. Humans had discovered the hyperlanes too. They used them regularly for trade and travel. But they had also developed their own method, something they called the Alcubierre-Shen drive. It was slower than hyperlanes. It used more energy, but it had one critical advantage: it could go anywhere. It didn't need natural channels. It created its own path through space. Earth had kept this technology secret, using it only for exploration missions to distant systems. The Council thought humans only had standard hyperlane drives. They based their entire blockade strategy on this assumption. They blocked the hyperlanes and thought the job was done. For 1 week, the blockade held. No ships entered or left human space through the hyperlanes. Admiral Torvus sent regular reports to the Council, confident that the humans were trapped. Chancellor Voxthor celebrated, believing victory was near. Then, on the 8th day, something impossible happened. A human fleet appeared behind the blockade forces. Not from the hyperlanes, from empty space. 200 warships materialized in formation, having traveled through areas where faster-than-light travel should be impossible. They hadn't broken through the blockade. They had simply gone around it, through routes the Council didn't know existed. At the same time, reports flooded into Council headquarters from across the galaxy. Human fleets had appeared in orbit over major Council worlds, not attacking, just appearing, sitting there, proving they could reach anywhere, anytime, regardless of defenses or blockades. Admiral Sarah Chen commanded the fleet that appeared behind the blockade. She opened a communication channel that broadcast to every ship in the system and to the entire galaxy. Admiral Torvus, members of the Galactic Council, citizens of all species, I am here to deliver a simple message. You cannot blockade us. You cannot contain us. You cannot trap us. While you have been watching the obvious doors, we have been using doors you didn't know existed. Holographic displays appeared throughout the galaxy, showing a map of human space. But it wasn't the human space the Council knew about. It showed dozens of additional colonies in systems far from the hyperlane network. Mining operations in asteroid fields that should be unreachable. Research stations in places the Council had never explored because they were too far from the hyperlanes. We have been preparing for this confrontation since the day we met you, Admiral Chen continued. Not because we wanted war, but because we have learned, through hard experience, that freedom must be defended. We hoped it would never come to this. We hoped the Council would accept us as equals. But you chose to make us subjects. That was your mistake, not ours. She paused, letting her words sink in. We are not here to attack anyone. We are here to demonstrate reality. You have two choices. You can acknowledge that you cannot enforce your decree and negotiate with us as equals, or you can try to fight us and learn why humanity unified after we almost destroyed ourselves in global war. Admiral Torvus didn't know what to do. His weapons were pointed the wrong way. Human ships sat behind his lines. If this turned into a battle, his ships would be caught between two forces. He called for instructions from the Council. The Council chamber erupted into chaos. The neat plan to isolate humanity had fallen apart in hours. Worse, intelligence reports confirmed that human colonies existed in dozens of systems the Council had never surveyed. Humans had been expanding secretly for decades, building infrastructure beyond Council observation. Some Council members called for immediate withdrawal. Others demanded military action. The arguments grew heated. Chancellor Voxthor tried to maintain control, but he was losing the room. Then something unexpected happened. 36 minor species, mostly client species under Council protection, sent a joint message. They announced they were declaring neutrality in the conflict between humanity and the Council. They would not send ships to fight humans. They would not support the blockade. Some went further, expressing sympathy for humanity's position. The Civics Collective, still recovering from the New Shanghai incident, made their own announcement. They formally withdrew from the Council's actions against humanity. They stated that after studying the human documents on rights and ethics, they could no longer support the Protection Decree. They called for peaceful resolution and reform of how the Council treated all species. Chancellor Voxthor watched his coalition crumbling. But he was not ready to give up. The Calarian Empire and its closest allies still commanded enormous military power. If the weaker species wouldn't fight, fine. The strong would handle it themselves. He called for a vote on military action. Real war. Not peacekeeping or blockades, but actual combat operations against human forces. The vote would happen in 3 days, giving the Council time to recall diplomats and prepare. During those 3 days, humanity didn't sit idle. They released more information. Videos from Earth's history, documentaries about human wars, explanations of concepts like mutually assured destruction, where both sides have enough weapons to destroy each other, so neither can win. Descriptions of guerrilla warfare, where even a defeated population can fight forever. Stories of human resistance movements that continued for decades or centuries. They also released their complete military doctrine, every strategy, every contingency plan, every weapon system. To most species, this seemed insane. Why tell your enemy your secrets? But it was calculated. Humans wanted the Council to understand exactly what war with humanity would mean. They wanted every military officer in the galaxy to read about human history and realize that humans didn't fight wars to win territory or gain honor. Humans fought wars to eliminate threats completely. They fought wars where billions died and they kept fighting. They had weapons so terrible they had banned them, but they still remembered how to make them. The information dump had its intended effect. Military analysts across the galaxy read the human documents with growing horror. One report in particular spread widely. It was an analysis of human nuclear weapons, which humans had developed before they even had spaceflight. At the peak of the Cold War, a conflict that thankfully never turned hot, humans had enough nuclear weapons to destroy their own planet dozens of times over. They had aimed these weapons at themselves, at their own cities, at their own people, ready to push the button if necessary. The report asked a simple question. What would humans do to an alien species that threatened them if they were willing to do that to themselves? More client species declared neutrality. Some went further, openly supporting humanity's call for reform. Protests erupted on dozens of worlds. Not violent protests, but beings gathering peacefully, holding signs asking for the same rights humans demanded. By the time the vote came, Chancellor Voxthor knew he didn't have enough support for total war. But he had support for something else. A large coalition of the most powerful council species agreed to one massive military operation. They would assemble the largest fleet in history. They would strike one human colony as a demonstration. They would prove that council power still meant something. The target was chosen carefully. New Britannia, the first colony that had defied the council. It would be fitting. The fleet would be so overwhelming that resistance would be impossible. The humans would see council strength and reconsider their defiance. 2,000 warships, the largest armada ever assembled, ships from the Calarian Empire, the Mexan Concordat, the Thorian Unity, and a dozen other major powers. They gathered at a staging point and prepared to jump to New Britannia. On Earth, military command received word of the fleet's target. Admiral Chen, back from the blockade demonstration, sat in the command center with other top officers. They looked at the numbers. 2,000 ships against one colony. Do we evacuate New Britannia? One officer asked. Admiral Chen shook her head. No, the colonists voted. They want to send a message. Begin Protocol 9, the final warning. The demonstration that would show the galaxy why humanity should never be pushed too far. The Council fleet jumped to New Britannia, expecting to find a frightened colony. Instead, they found something that would haunt their nightmares for generations. The Council armada dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the New Britannia system. 2,000 warships in perfect formation, the largest military force in recorded history. Admiral Vorketh commanded from his massive flagship. He felt confident. No colony could stand against such overwhelming power. Then the sensors started reporting something strange. The colony was empty, not destroyed, not hiding, just empty. Every ship had left. Every station was evacuated. The cities on the planet below showed no life signs. New Britannia appeared to be a ghost colony. Admiral Vorketh frowned. This didn't make sense. Why abandon the colony completely? Where had 3 million people gone? His tactical officer checked for trap signatures. Nothing. No hidden ships. No weapons platforms in standby mode. Just empty space and an empty world. Then a message began broadcasting. It came from everywhere at once. Every communication frequency. Every wavelength. A simple text message that appeared on every screen in the fleet. Welcome to New Britannia. The colonists have been safely evacuated. We did not want civilian casualties. This system is now a free fire zone. You wanted war. Here it is. Before anyone could react, the space around the Armada lit up with thousands of new contacts. They weren't ships. They were much smaller. Objects the size of a cargo container, appearing from seemingly nowhere. They had been floating dormant, their systems completely shut down, invisible to sensors. Now they activated all at once. Humans called them mines. But they weren't the simple explosive devices other species used. These were intelligent weapons with their own propulsion, their own targeting computers, their own decision-making systems. They identified targets, calculated trajectories, and accelerated toward council ships at incredible speeds. The first explosions came seconds later. A Calarian battleship took 3 mine hits to its engine section. The shield stopped the first 2 but failed against the third. The ship didn't explode, but it was crippled, power failing, unable to jump to faster than light speed. More mines found their targets. The council ships tried to shoot them down, but there were too many. For every mine destroyed, 2 more got through. Within 5 minutes, over 300 council ships were disabled. Not destroyed. Humans were being careful, targeting engines and power systems, not life support or crew quarters. They were crippling the fleet, not massacring it. Admiral Vorketh ordered an immediate retreat. The ships that still had power jumped away to faster than light speed, leaving the disabled vessels behind. More than 400 ships remained in the system, drifting helplessly, their crews alive but their ships dead in space. As the survivors jumped away, another message broadcast. Rescue ships may enter the system to collect disabled vessels. You have 24 hours. After that, this system becomes a permanent no-go zone. Any military ship entering will be engaged, but humanity wasn't done. While the Council fleet limped home, something else was happening across the galaxy. On every major Council world, on every station, on every communication network, humans released a massive information dump. It was humanity's complete military doctrine. Every strategy, every weapon system, every tactical manual, but more importantly, it was humanity's history, real history. Not the sanitized version humans had shared before, but the brutal truth of human conflict. Videos from World War I showed young humans dying in trenches, poison gas drifting across battlefields. World War II footage displayed cities reduced to rubble, entire populations mobilized for total war. The atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki demonstrated weapons so terrible that even humans were horrified by them. Documents explained the concept of total war. Every factory becomes a weapons factory. Every civilian contributes to the war effort. Every resource is dedicated to victory. Surrender is not considered until one side is completely defeated. The files described guerrilla warfare, how small groups of humans fought empires for decades, how they hid among civilians, struck without warning, and disappeared, how they made occupation so costly that even victorious armies eventually withdrew. Most chilling were the cold calculations. Human military planners had done studies on acceptable loss ratios. How many casualties could humanity absorb and keep fighting? The numbers were staggering. In World War II alone, some human nations lost 20 million people and continued fighting. They didn't surrender. They got angry. One document asked a simple question that spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Humans nearly destroyed themselves fighting each other. What do you think they'll do to you? The effect was immediate and dramatic. Military analysts throughout Council space read the documents with mounting horror. This wasn't like any war their species understood. Council conflicts were about territory or resources or honor. They followed rules. Battles had objectives. Victories had meaning. Human war was different. It was about survival and ideas. Humans fought wars of complete commitment. They built weapons specifically designed to be so terrible that using them was unthinkable, then kept them ready just in case. They had concepts like mutually assured destruction, where both sides could destroy each other so neither could attack first. More Council species declared neutrality. Some that had sent ships to the Armada recalled them. Public opinion across the galaxy shifted dramatically. Average citizens from hundreds of species looked at human history and asked their leaders a simple question: why are we fighting them? Client species saw something else in the human documents. They saw species that had overthrown tyrants repeatedly, revolutions that succeeded despite overwhelming odds, resistance movements that outlasted occupying armies. The message was clear: freedom is possible if you're willing to fight for it. Rebellions began. Not violent at first, but client species across Council territory started demanding independence. The Terran, who had been subjects for 300 years, formally declared themselves free. The Civics Collective supported them. Other species followed. The Council was fracturing. Species that had been united for millennia now argued constantly. Some wanted to negotiate with humanity. Others insisted on maintaining Council authority. A few radical voices even suggested that maybe the humans were right. Maybe the whole system needed to change. Chancellor Voxthor watched his power crumbling. The Calarian Empire had maintained control of the Council for 3 centuries. Now that control was slipping away, he had one last card to play. He called for a vote of no confidence in the current Council structure. If it passed, the Council would be dissolved and reformed. Maybe in the chaos he could maintain some power. The vote never happened. Instead, something unprecedented occurred. The Calarian Empire had its own internal crisis. Junior officers in the Calarian military, who had read the human documents and fought at New Britannia, began questioning orders. Some refused to participate in further actions against humanity or rebellious client species. The breaking point came when Admiral Zexthar, who had led the first failed mission to New Britannia, published his own statement. He explained what he had seen, how humans had held back, could have destroyed his fleet but chose not to, how they valued life, even enemy life, more than the Council did. He ended his statement with words that shocked the galaxy. I have spent 50 years believing the Council brought order and peace. The humans have shown me we brought order through oppression and peace through submission. They are right. We are wrong. I resign my commission and call for reform. The Calarian government was forced to arrest him to maintain discipline. But the damage was done. When senior military officers start questioning the system, that system is doomed. A coup followed. Not violent, but definitely a coup. Moderate Calarian politicians, backed by reform-minded military officers, removed Chancellor Voxthor from power. He was given a choice: resign gracefully or face trial for crimes against sapient beings. He resigned. The new Calarian leadership immediately called for peace talks with humanity. They invited all Council species, including newly independent former client species, to attend. The location they proposed shocked everyone: Geneva on Earth. It was a symbolic choice. Geneva was where humans had signed their conventions on warfare and human rights, where they had established international law. By choosing Geneva, the Calarians were admitting that humanity's way might be better than the Council's way. Ambassador Sarah Chen, receiving the invitation, allowed herself a small smile. Months ago, the Council had declared humanity subjects. Now they were coming to Earth as equals, perhaps even as students, to learn how to build a better galaxy. The war that everyone feared never truly happened. Yes, there was a battle at New Britannia. Yes, hundreds of ships were damaged. But no one died. Humanity had proven its point without massacre. They showed that they could win, but they chose mercy instead. That choice, more than anything else, convinced the galaxy that humans deserved respect. Any species could destroy. Few chose to show restraint even when they had the power to destroy. Geneva had never seen so many different species in one place. The old Palace of Nations building, where humans had once tried to maintain peace on Earth, now hosted representatives from over 900 civilizations. Former council members sat beside newly independent species. Old enemies shared corridors. Everyone had come to rebuild the galactic order. The humans had done something clever. They didn't put themselves in charge of the conference. They didn't sit at the head table. Instead, they positioned themselves as facilitators and guides. They shared their experience building international organizations. They offered the lessons they had learned, both from their successes and their terrible failures. Ambassador Sarah Chen opened the conference with a speech that would be remembered for centuries. She stood at the podium, looking out at hundreds of alien faces. Some watched her with hope, others with suspicion, a few with fear. She began simply, "No fancy words, no political speeches, just truth. We didn't want this confrontation. We came to the stars hoping to find friends, partners, and teachers. Instead, we found a system that reminded us too much of our own dark history. Empires ruling over subjects, power determining rights, the strong deciding the fate of the weak. We couldn't accept it, not because we think we're better than you, but because we've been subjects too. On Earth, almost every human nation was once conquered by someone else. We know what it's like to live without freedom. We know the cost of fighting for independence. We know that sapient beings, no matter what form they take, deserve to govern themselves. So we're here, all of us, to try something different, to build something better, not a council where some species rule and others obey, but a union where every voice matters equally. It won't be perfect. Democracy never is. It's messy and slow and frustrating, but it's better than the alternative. The Calarian representative, a young diplomat named Corvan who had replaced the disgraced Voxthor, stood to respond. His voice was humble, so different from the arrogance his predecessor had shown. Ambassador Chen speaks the truth. My people maintained the old council system for 3 centuries. We told ourselves it brought stability and peace. We were wrong. It brought compliance and silence. Those are not the same as peace. We ask forgiveness from the species we governed. We cannot undo 300 years of oppression, but we can help build something new. We commit ourselves to this new union as equal members, not as masters. The negotiations that followed took months. Every species had concerns. Former council members worried about losing influence. Newly independent species feared being vulnerable. Smaller civilizations wanted guarantees that they wouldn't be dominated again. Humanity offered solutions drawn from their own history. A general assembly where each species had one vote regardless of size or power. A security council with rotating membership to prevent any single group from dominating. A bill of rights that applied to all sapient beings. An independent judiciary to resolve disputes. But the humans insisted on something else too. Something that made many delegates uncomfortable. The new union had to have the power to intervene when species committed atrocities against their own people or others. Sovereignty was important, but it couldn't be an excuse for genocide or slavery or oppression. This caused heated debate. Some species argued that internal matters should remain internal. Humans responded by showing recordings from their own history. The Holocaust, the Rwandan genocide, the killing fields of Cambodia, all atrocities that happened because the world failed to act. We learned this lesson in blood, Sarah explained to the delegates. Sovereignty cannot be absolute when it protects monsters. Never again should any people suffer while the rest of the galaxy looks away. We propose intervention only in extreme cases, with high standards of proof and only through democratic vote. But we must have the option. Eventually, compromises were reached. The charter of the new Galactic Union was signed by representatives of 731 species. Others chose to remain independent but friendly. A few refused to join, preferring isolation to democratic governance. Humanity accepted this. The Union would not be forced on anyone. That would defeat its entire purpose. The most emotional moment came when the Terran representative stood to speak. The Terran had been council subjects for 300 years. They had never had a voice in galactic affairs. Now they did. My grandparents never dreamed of this day, she said, her voice breaking with emotion. They lived their entire lives as subjects, believing freedom was impossible. They taught me to accept my place, to not question the order of things. Then humanity came and asked a simple question. Why? Why should any sapient being be subject to another? They had no good answer. Neither did we. So we chose freedom. The humans didn't free us with weapons or force. They freed us with ideas. They showed us what was possible. They proved that even young species could stand up to ancient powers. They gave us hope. For that, we will be forever grateful. As the conference concluded, Sarah Chen stood on a balcony overlooking Lake Geneva, the same lake her ancestors had gazed upon while trying to prevent human wars. Now it witnessed the birth of something unprecedented, a truly democratic galactic government. Admiral Chen joined her. The same admiral who had sent her to the council all those months ago when everything began. We did it, he said quietly. We changed everything. Sarah shook her head. We started something. Whether it works, whether it lasts, that's up to all of us. Democracy is hard work. It requires constant effort, constant vigilance. We'll make mistakes. There will be setbacks. But it's better than the alternative, the admiral finished. Yes, it's better than the alternative. Later, in a quiet moment away from the celebrations, Sarah recorded a message. It would be sealed and opened only after her death, a message to future generations. In it, she explained the truth that few understood. People will say humanity defeated the Galactic Council through superior technology or military might. This is not true. We won because we understood something. The Council never learned. You cannot permanently suppress beings who have tasted freedom. We knew this confrontation was inevitable. From the moment we met the Council and saw how they treated client species, we've been subjects before in our long history. Every human nation at some point was conquered by someone else. We know what it's like. We know the anger, the resentment, the burning desire for self-determination. So we prepared, not because we wanted war, but because we wanted to survive. We built hidden colonies so we couldn't be trapped. We developed weapons so we couldn't be conquered. We studied council psychology so we would understand our potential enemies, and we waited. When they declared us subjects, we knew what to do. Show them the cost of oppression. Demonstrate that controlling humanity would be more expensive than accepting us. Prove that we could fight if necessary, but offer peace if possible. And most importantly, inspire others to seek their own freedom. The Council thought declaring us subjects would make us weak. They were wrong. It made us dangerous. Because humans have been fighting for freedom since we lived in caves, since we first looked at a tyrant and said no. That's the real human difference. Not our technology or our tactics. Our absolute refusal to be owned by anyone. The message ended there. Sarah sealed it and returned to the celebrations. 50 years later, a young Calarian student named Rixva sat in a history class on Earth. The teacher, an older human woman named Dr. Martinez, was explaining the events of what historians now called the Freedom Crisis. Rixva raised her hand. Dr. Martinez, is it true that your people defeated the entire Galactic Council? That you fought the largest fleet in history and won? Dr. Martinez smiled, the kind of smile teachers give when a student asks exactly the right question. We didn't defeat them, Rixva. We convinced them. There's a difference. Yes, we showed that we could fight. But what really changed things was showing them why we had to fight. We shared our history, our wars, our struggles, our long fight for freedom. We showed them that every human culture at some point had been oppressed, and every time we had fought back. We had overthrown kings and emperors and dictators. We had died by the millions rather than live as subjects. When the Council saw that, they understood. Controlling humanity would mean endless conflict. We would never stop resisting, never accept our chains. The cost would be too high in lives and resources and moral damage. Another student, a young human boy, asked, but why did we prepare so much? The hidden colonies and weapons? Wasn't that dishonest? We call it prudence, Dr. Martinez replied. We hoped for peace but prepared for war. That's not dishonesty. That's survival. We'd seen how the Council treated client species. We knew we might face the same fate, so we made sure we could defend ourselves if necessary. Rixva spoke again, thoughtful now. My grandfather was part of the fleet that went to New Britannia. He never talks about it, but he keeps a copy of the Human Geneva Conventions in his study. He reads it sometimes. Many who fought that day changed their minds about humans, Dr. Martinez said gently. They expected monsters. They found people who valued life, even enemy life, who showed mercy when they could have shown cruelty. That's what really defeated the Council. Not our weapons, but our principles.